Today I'm going to be giving you a behind the scenes tour of what's happening here on the flower farm, what plants I've got growing in the ground, what's in the greenhouse and the winter tasks that I'm taking on at the moment. Well, welcome to my flower field. It is now February time and to be honest I've been in hibernation for the last few months. I've been working on some different projects, but I'm coming out of hibernation now and I'm ready to start cracking on the flower farm, and I'm heading into my 9th season of growing flowers, so there's a lot of preparation to do for seed sowing, which is going to commence in the next few weeks, and just preparing in general for the year ahead. For those of you that are new to my channel, I just wanted to give you a brief overview of what is happening here on the farm. So I started flower farming in 2017 and I started in a field which was located at the front of the farm quite close to our house, and the field was a triangle shape which made it quite awkward to grow in, and after growing in there for a couple of years I decided that I needed a bit more room, so I prepared this field behind me. I put a polytunnel in and I was really grateful to have the extra space, and I grew like that for a couple of years, some flowers growing in the field around the front of the farm and then some flowers growing in here. But it started to get a little bit inconvenient to have flowers grown in two different places, so I decided to ditch the front flower field, the triangle shaped one, and just grow in here and then set up a new flower field just over the other side of the polytunnel there. So now I'm growing in two fields. I've got this one here which only grows perennials in it, and then over the hedge is my annual flower field. I also have a 60-foot by 20-foot polytunnel and a couple of greenhouses that grow all of my seedlings on. I'm not sure whether I can actually call them greenhouses anymore because they hardly have any glass in them. The storms over the winter have knocked loads of glass out of them, so that is another thing that needs sorting before spring. And over the years I have been selling flowers through lots of different outlets, but at the moment I am currently selling through a handful of outlets, those of which being wedding flowers. So I sell flowers by the bucket to brides and grooms so that they can arrange their own wedding flowers. I also run workshops here on the farm in the summer so people can come and pick flowers, make arrangements and just spend a nice morning or afternoon walking around the flower fields, just having a lovely time. And then I am doing a farmers market this year, and I also sell to a few florists, and then I have a flower shed that I sell flowers at the top of the driveway. And then I also do one-off hand-tied bouquet orders as and when somebody orders them. I also grow using regenerative farming techniques, so I try to work with nature to improve the soil and improve the environment around my flower fields. I like to encourage beneficial organisms to come and join me and help me out to produce my lovely flowers, and I try to improve the soil by growing cover crops, adding mulches, making compost, etc. And if you follow along on my channel, then you'll see I've made lots of videos about all of these things in the past. So we'll start off the tour in this perennial field, and you'll see to the right of me here that I've got some sheets covering over a couple of beds here, and that is my dahlia tubers. And at the end of autumn I cut my dahlia plants down. I added some mulch in the form of straw and leaves, and then I covered it over with a plastic sheet to protect it from the rain over winter. And I haven't actually had a sneak peek under this plastic just yet. I wanted to today, for the purposes of this video, I wanted to share with you whether the method was succeeding, but we've got some frost today and I don't really want to start digging around whilst the ground is still frosty. So if I manage to do so before this video goes live, then I will let you know whether the dahlias are doing okay under the plastic sheet. The suspense is killing me. So as for the rest of this field, there are it's not fully planted, but there are lots of other things going on here. This section here is oxeye daisies, and they're always a really handy flower to have for bouquets. And then I have some Chasmanthium latifolium grass just behind me there, which is a really nice grass to use come autumn time. And then I have some sedum here, and that is probably one of the most used plants here on the farm. I use it so much. All the way from spring to autumn, it just comes in really handy as a filler for bouquets. I probably won't be digging this and dividing it anytime soon, at least in this season, because I only divided it and planted it last season, so I'll probably give it another year, and then if I need more then I can divide it and create some more plants for free. And then a little bit further back over here, I've got some Limonium latifolium, which is another really nice filler, which is a nice purple colour. It's very airy and just very nice to use in bouquets. And then there's some Achillea arduratum, also known as English mace, which is another really helpful filler in summertime. And I wish it would just flower for a little bit longer into autumn, because I do miss the lighter coloured filler flowers sometimes into autumn. So I'm on the hunt for a filler flower that's going to be useful in autumn, because the sedum is great, but it turns quite a dark pink colour in autumn, and it's not useful in every single arrangement that I do. Then a little bit further down here, I've got some Sweet Williams and some Honesty and some Hesperus. And then I have Feverfew. And then further down here, I did plant quite a lot of perennials at the back end of last summer. Some Campanula, some Potentilla, and some Scabiosa and some lupins. But if you have been following along in the last year or so, you'll know that I've been having major problems with rabbits here on the farm. I did actually re-fence this whole field to protect me from rabbits, but they've still been getting in and something has been eating my perennials. But the good news is I can still see a couple of leaves that are sprouting up above the soil, so I'm hoping they've not completely decimated all of the plants here, and I will still get some growing when it comes to warming up in spring. So with regards to the bare patches here in the field, I do have quite a few perennials that I've got in pots here that I've either grown from seed or I've bought in, and those will be planted into this field once the weather warms up and once I've figured out where the rabbits are getting in. And then this field is going to be pretty full come summer. I'm just bringing you around the corner to the back of the polytunnel, where I have a few perennials just planted in these beds down here, and I've got some Sweet Williams here, and then there's quite a lot of Achillea. I've got one bed and then a half bed, and then the other half of that bed's got Feverfew in it. And then over towards this side, I've finally got some mint planted out on the farm, and over the years I have collected mint cuttings, had them in pots, and then just not planted them out because I haven't known where to plant them, because I'm worried about it spreading all over the place. So what I've decided to do is just shove them in that bed in the far corner of the field, and hopefully they'll be okay in there and we'll have a nice summer mint harvest. I'm really looking forward to it. And you'll notice that I haven't got any bulbs planted this year, and that is just because I tend to sell less flowers in very early spring, so I've decided to forego the bulbs this year. I'm not sure whether I'm going to regret it, but we'll see come spring. I'm sure I'll be updating you on that at some point. So that is it for the perennial field. We'll move over now to the annual field. We're now in my annual field, which is my most recently set up flower field, and it went into production in 2023, but I didn't start harvesting from it till last season. And last year only about half of this field was in production, and the other half was covered over with a sheet, and I just didn't have enough flowers to fill this field because of the rabbit situation. So I have a couple of things growing in here at the moment, but not a lot. I have a few plants that are ready to plant out in here once the weather warms up a little bit over in the greenhouse, so I'll show you those a little bit later on. But at the moment I have a bed here which is corncockle, cornflower and scabiosa. This bed here was actually full of ammi and it's all gone, and I'm not sure what's been eating it. This field is also protected against rabbits, but I'm not sure whether it's them or some other creature that has been eating that. And then a little bit further back here, I've got a full bed of foxgloves. So come late spring, early summer, that's going to be really nice to be harvesting armfuls of foxgloves. And then the rest of the beds here are empty. Some of them still have some crop residue on them from last season. I like to just leave that in because I think it's good for the beneficial organisms and just provides a little bit of habitat. However, at the moment I am planning to cover these empty beds up with some mulch. The empty beds were sown up with a cover crop at the back end of last year. However, the usual happened and the pests had my cover crop seed. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about the cover crop situation in the future, but I definitely need to pivot and find a different strategy to get the cover crop seeds to germinate. What I'm thinking at the moment is that I'm going to maybe cover them over, sow the cover crop and let them chit with a cover over the top of them. And then maybe I just need to absolutely cover the place in bird repellents. We'll see. Anyway, so these empty beds, the cover crop obviously didn't germinate. So I'm going to be covering them over with some horse muck, some horse bedding in the next few days, just to help to protect the soil. I know we are a little bit late at the moment. It is February now. I should have done this way before, but such is life. So I'm going to be covering these over, and hopefully some of that mulch is going to work its way into the soil. But at the very least, it's just going to protect the soil from any erosion that we're going to get between now and end of April or the beginning of May. So the strategy for this field for the season is to cover it over with the mulch, and then I'm going to be sowing my February sown hardy annuals in the next few weeks. And once they're ready to plant, I'll move the mulch out of the way and I will plant the hardy annuals into these empty beds. And at the same time, I'm going to cover over the cover crop that is growing in the back half of the field there, and that will take a couple of months to kill off, so it's not going to be ready to plant into until around June or July time. So then I'll do a second succession of hardy annuals in around middle to late March, and then I'll plant those out in the field once the cover crop has been killed off. And then once my February sown hardy annuals are finished, then I will clear them, and then I will plant autumn sown hardy annuals or biennials into these fields, so that we've got a constant rotation of plants, hopefully. And then once the second succession of annuals is finished over in the back half of this field, then I'll cover crop the back half of that field again. It does get very wet at the back half of that field, so I don't want to be planting flower crops in there that I could potentially lose to wet weather over the winter. So that is the strategy for this field for the season, so we'll see. Hopefully it'll work out. And the other thing to mention is, maybe you can see in the border of this field here, you can see maybe some straw mulch along there. I've got some willow cuttings put into the soil, so I'm hoping that I'm going to create a nice screen here, and then I'm going to continue to plant out that willow around the edge of this field to help us with a little bit of wind protection, provide some habitat for beneficial organisms, etc. And I have made a dedicated video about that, so watch out for next week's episode. I will be showing you how I am planting that willow hedge and the many benefits that it has to offer. So here we are now in the polytunnel, and there's a few things going on in here. I've mainly got ranunculus planted at the moment in the polytunnel, as well as a few snapdragon plants that have overwintered, and some chrysanthemums that were put in last summer and flowered in late summer, autumn time, which were really nice flowers. So hopefully I can take some cuttings from those and have more chrysanthemums at the end of this season. And actually I was in here a couple of days ago just having a bit of a tidy up. I was cutting down the asparagus fern that's over in the back corner, and I was digging out some elder trees that germinated in here a few years ago, and I didn't get round to pulling them out at the time, and they've just got a little bit too big, so now they require fully digging out, and that's a bit of a pain in the ass. But anyway, I was in here a couple of days ago and I was quite pleased because rabbits had been getting into the polytunnel, and I managed to nip it in the bud. I shut the doors, I shut all of the screens in here to stop the rabbits from getting in. And I noticed the other day that when I was in here that the ranunculus that had been eaten by the rabbits were starting to re-sprout from the corm, so I was really pleased with that. And I've just come in here today and they've kind of been messing with this bed again, and they've dug up a lot of the ranunculus corms. A lot of them are just sort of lying here on the ground. They've been dug up, so I'm so disappointed about that, and I'm just really frustrated because every time I plant something it just feels like I'm wasting my time, wasting my money, and also it affects the profits that I make on the farms. So last year I turned over a third less than I usually do, on the flowers, and that is basically because a lot of my fields weren't in production because the rabbits had eaten my seedlings. And I should have been really making a lot more money last year because of starting up the new flower field, which was giving me a lot extra growing space. So I'm just really hoping that I can nip this in the bud and I can come up with a solution to this rabbit situation, because it's getting a little bit tiresome. And to be honest, it does make you wonder why you are continuing on to battle with them. So those will have to be replanted today, give them a bit of a water, because they're looking a bit kind of sad that they've been dug up and messed around with. And then yeah, it's basically they've got into a hole that I patched up a while ago. They've managed to get back into that hole, so that needs sorting out again. And then as for the summer, in this polytunnel, I will probably be putting some sweet peas in here that I have grown from seed, and I will be growing melons like I usually do, tomatoes, and then I'll probably put some things like zinnias, etc. in here for a summer harvest that'll hopefully go on a little bit longer into autumn because of the extra protection that the polytunnel provides. So I'll just show you what other plants I have sitting around in pots here on the farm, and then that will conclude our tour, and then I will let you know what jobs I am getting up to at the moment here on the farm. Welcome to the greenhouses. The one next to me doesn't have anything in it at the moment, so I'm just showing you what's in this greenhouse here, and it's mainly hardy annuals that I sowed in autumn, and I've got some other perennials and things in here that need potting on and planting out once the weather warms up. And I've got a couple of trays of larkspur in here, which I'll be planting out into the annual field come spring. I've got some Orlea here, which will probably go out into the polytunnel because it does best out there in the polytunnel. And then here I have some cuttings that I took of the Achillea argyratum, which will hopefully increase my stock of those. And then I have a couple of varieties of Campanula that I'm really looking forward to planting out into the perennial field, and hopefully there will be a nice flower to add to my bouquets. Then I've got some Dorcas, some poppies, some more larkspur, some Silene vulgaris, which is a nice perennial, some sweet peas, and that is about it. So here's my collection of things that are just outside at the moment. I've got some lupins, which is a bit of a godsend because the ones that were eaten by the rabbits can potentially be replaced by these, even though they are kind of looking a little bit worse for wear. Hopefully they'll spring into action come spring. And then I've got a few pots here of Canterbury bells. I would actually like to put those in the polytunnel, so I'll just have to see if I've got room to squeeze them in. Some hollyhocks, some Nigella, a bit of a scatty looking tray of Nigella. There was some poppies here. There's probably only a handful of plants that have survived over winter. Some bunnytails grass, that's, if I can find even more space in the polytunnel, I'll try to put them in there as well. And then some Nigella there. And then over on this bench I have a type of it's kind of like a yellow daisy type flower. My friend Hattie from Gathered At Dusk, she grows this one and recommended it, so I'm going to be putting that in the perennial field this year. And then I also have here some asters, which are a blue colour, so they'll be going into the perennial field too, hopefully for a nice summer harvest. Field tour over, it was time to get some winter work done. We started by removing the crop residue left over from last season, which will head over to the compost pile to be broken down before eventually making its way back to the field as compost. Then we removed some of the perennial weeds like docks and applied a really thick layer of mulch to the beds. This will protect the bare soil from soil erosion and provide food for the microbes below. Hopefully the worms will get to work pulling all that organic matter down into the soil, creating channels for air and water to flow within the soil too. The thick mulch will also prevent spring weed seed germination, which will give me a head start in spring. I'm really looking forward to pulling the mulch back off before planting in May to see how good the soil looks below. Obviously, I would have preferred a living cover crop on the flower beds, but we have to work with the cards we're dealt. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to know what varieties I'm going to be sowing on the farm this year, then check out last week's video where I took you seed shopping with me and let you in on my decision making process for flower variety selection.